All right, this is our fourth presentation. Actually, we got a local company here from Mount Pleasant. It's Moondog Animation Studios. Ben Davis is, I guess, the, what's your title at Moondog?
So I am founder and CTO,
Well,
meaning Chief Technology Officer.
This is the big dog here. So he's the one with the big brains and makes it all happen. So anyway, he's going to talk to you about how Moondog creates some full-length feature films, 100% animation, and probably give you some little examples or some things like that. And anyway, super excited to have him here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ben. So
Great.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Brent. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. It's quite an honor to be able to speak in a local school and see that there's exciting programs gearing up so that we can feed off of you guys and bring you into our industry. So as I understand, we're presenting different outlets for the education that you're receiving here at College of Charleston. Our outlet is, of course, the best. We make animated feature films. I imagine the other guys have said the same thing about their industries too, but that's fair. We've been here for about a year and a half now in Mount Pleasant. We started actually 4 years ago in France, where I was actually born, raised over there, as you can tell by my accent. My parents are American missionaries over there, so I can do both. And I've been working in the industry for a long time. Basically, I'm 13 years old in 3D animation. And a couple of friends and I got together and decided we had to do something with a little more intent and purpose than working for other studios. So I'm going to present to you before the two other guys in Moondog. So you have Brian Ransom. He's from Aiken, South Carolina right now. He's actually from Georgetown. That was his birthplace. We met him because his wife worked over in France for 6 years and he was in the film and music industry. He's the guy who basically gets the money. Then there's us two who spend the money. You have Jean-Marc, J.M. Cayette. He's a national French. He's been in the industry for 28 years, a little bit older. He's directed 3 animation studios, built 2 of them from scratch. And we've together worked on and off and delivered a lot of content for a bunch of different places. And humbly, here's me. I have the honor of directing all the technology now from the artistic point of view of our needs too. So there's a fun mix in my job. I come from the fine arts side of the world when I was doing studies. Got wrapped into 3D animation really quick when I realized that I could tell stories through the tools that were at my disposal in animation. The technical and the artistic just kind of meshed. And research and development and all that have become really the thing that I love to do in this business. So those are the Moondogs, the initial part of it. But now we're happy to be a team of 6 in Mount Pleasant. We have some friends in France that are working for us basically full time, and we're gearing up, as you'll see later on in the presentation, to do our first feature film. 150 people here in the area that will be working for the next 3 years on our first project. At a couple points of this presentation, I'm going to again ask to not film or take pictures or anything, because if you do that, if you respect that, I'll show you some stuff that I'm not allowed to show anyone unless you're signing NDAs and all kinds of disclosure agreements and all that. So can everyone agree to that? Yeah. Awesome. All right. It's better because that way I don't have to skip through slides and everything. So basically, our mission is to create content that influences our culture, not only here in the US, but across the world. That's what feature films are. It's an international product. Through deep stories, strong characters, and beautiful animation, we're inspired to tell stories with the power to change the world around us. And another quote that actually says that even better, unfortunately it's anonymous, so but it's really good, and it really boils down what our motivation is. We rest in the shade of trees we did not plant. We plant trees whose shade we will never see for our children's children. So how do we do that? This is not Charleston's next metro system, but it's in a sense a representation of our roadmap to success. Like I said, right now, we're right here. 2015, we're gearing up to we're 6 right now, gearing up to 8. We are in a stage called development. And development is a lot of, I'll explain more of this later, it's a lot of story, character, research on what the best ideas would be in our movies, throwing a bunch of stuff out, recreating more stuff. It's very exciting, a little frustrating sometimes, but it's a small crew that we can be really reactive with. Pretty soon we gear up to 30 people, and that's a stage we call pre-production. That's where we start really putting together the tools necessary to make a movie actually fabricatable. I don't know if that's an English word. So the fabrication depends on this stage being well thought out. That's where there's a lot of brain power right there in those 30. Then come 150 people in the studio, and that's creating really the movie, the fabrication process. It's a well-oiled machine by then, and you're able to crunch out shots and assets and everything so that at the end you have a movie that people will go see in the theater. And then as we go, we have more ambitious movies and more projects on the line, and we keep growing in our jobs, which I hope is exciting to you guys. It means we're really, I mean, our intent is to be here in the area, brick and mortar company, so there are opportunities, definitely. Keep in touch. Our experience, just to make sure that this is not a crazy dream, we do have experience in making movies. This will be our first feature film that belongs to us, but our experience has been, we as a team have made over 17 hours of content, if you put it back to back, for different companies such as Disney, Nickelodeon, some other companies in France like Canal+, France Television, some video game content for Ubisoft. And if you think about it, 17 hours of content is put back to back 9 feature films worth of content. So there's a little bit of volume of stuff that has been done. Again, not Moondog's content, and that's what we're working on right now. We realize that our strategic partnerships are really important, and we're really excited to be starting to talk to people here at College of Charleston, people up at Clemson, with Professor Tessendorf, for example. Really have a good connection up there, and more of the artistic schools that are around in the Southeast also. Those are, and we know that by creating a good can't find the word, sorry? Synergy, good, thank you. By the way, that's Kelly Fowler, our executive synergizer. She knows that word very well. So synergy around in the area is important. We need to help each other out and build on what we have locally as we bring in more and more talent from elsewhere also. And during the past 4 years, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but we have done our homework. Our vision is set, our business is solid, our financials are done. Ernst & Young has stamped them and validated their validity. They also audit DreamWorks, so that's comforting to know. We have a first round of investors. We have bled ourselves dry. We have moved here from France to South Carolina with our families. I have 3 boys that are in the schools of Mount Pleasant, and we're really happy to be here. And we are getting ready for these movies to start really going up to the next stages. Like I said, pre-production and all that. And we did other fun things like Kickstarter campaign, where we put in $25,000 in all the preparation of it, and we went above and beyond our hopes. We were hoping for $100,000. We raised $117,000 for content that was just put on YouTube afterwards. There wasn't any product afterwards other than seeing stuff on screen, which was very exciting. And also we've been working on local projects. Now this is really exciting. It's right next door, and this is a project that you've probably seen them constructing something on the back. Well, it's going to be the Shark Shallows, and they have a problem. Sharks are going to be pet, like with your fingers, you're going to be able to put your fingers in a tank and you're going to be able to pet sharks. There's kind of, Steven Spielberg didn't help the global mindset on sharks back a few years ago when he made the movie Jaws. They came to us wondering if we could fix that and kind of shift the perception of sharks in the global mindset. So we were happy to take on that task, and I'm going to be able to show you a few, the final clip. We just finished it last Friday, and after I show you that clip, I'm going to go through the what it means to make a movie using this clip as an example. Because basically a 60-second, 30-second, hour and a half piece of animation goes through the same steps, creatively, technically, in the way that you deliver it even sometimes. So it'll be a good example to start getting you to understand what animation really is. And then after that, I'll tell you what it means to, and with the technology, how to assist all that and make it even more optimal and creative in the end. So we came to them with 2 drawings at our first meeting. This one, basically we imagined a boy who has a pet shark, a little stuffed animal, and is in his imagination, just like Calvin and Hobbes, his shark comes to life and they play around and they basically are best friends. So this is the kid's room. His name is Miles. Miles' room, as you can see, there's the Ravenel Bridge on the little toy set there. And this is the underwater shot. We thought it'd be fun to put the Queen Anne underwater. We took the Hunley and put it back underwater. I know it's not there anymore, but and we wanted to make a very open, creative area that we could start having fun with. I do understand that the water is a lot more murky around here, but we make fun animation, not realistic animation. Then we started doing tests to show them that there's potential here. So we worked on underwater shots, and this is one of the test renders, and it's starting to get really interesting with the caustics and the depth of field and the depth that you get from the ocean's actual substance that takes away from certain colors and everything, and that we showed to them, and they were sold, fortunately. And just this is a kind of a show-off slide. We came up with a flocking. We put together a flocking system. Basically, it's making these fish are semi-intelligent, in the sense that we now press play, and the system knows basically what fish are allowed to be together, what percentage can split off or not, how fast, the speed, the velocity, and all that. It's basically by spending 2 days creating this system, we then had the asset ready to put in every single shot and make there be fish, rather than having to animate each little fish individually. I'll come back on the technical details of stuff like that later on too. This, like I said, is a miniature version of a feature film movie, because there's a story, there's characters, there's animation. I mean, basically take it all. There's music. There's everything you need to make a movie. Maybe just not the credits at the end. We didn't have time to squeeze those in the 60 seconds, and I don't think I've never seen a TV ad with credits at the end, so we'll just go without those. So you see on the screen here those 3 steps I talked to you about, right? So I'm going to ask you, what do you think fits in these different stages of the fabrication of a movie? So I told you about development, pre-production, fabrication. I'm asking you, what do you need to do to make a movie?
Come up with an idea.
Great start. Yes, you need an idea. That's great. So we'll start with an idea. You have an idea. What do you do with this idea?
Do we need to draw storyboards?
Yes, but I'll write that down, but we need to do a few other things before the storyboard. So we got the storyboard.
I guess you need to propose it to people who can actually make it happen and find out how you're going to be able to pay for it.
That's a very important element. Yes, that's so true. We'll actually put that underneath here, and this is going to be that big red line. That is all the time. So finding funding, financing it, and everything, that's on every part of the project. We of course need less money at the beginning where I had numbers before where you had the number of employees, like 8 people. You need less money to feed 8 people than you need when you're over here with 150 people. But funding is unfortunately very important. But let's go back to actually making the movie. That's a question you need to bring up when you're talking with the producer. And that's Brian.
You need to brainstorm the idea and figure out what it is you're trying to do with it, what you want to show.
Yeah, brainstorming. So I'll put that under idea. So we're gonna keep going with the idea. We're gonna brainstorm it. So we brainstorm the ideas. We're still in the idea though, so that's just fleshing it out.
Is it possible?
If it's possible, the feasibility of the movie? Well, we'll go from the fact that anything's possible until you do the budgets. So when we're in the idea, we actually, we take that out of our minds, the feasibility of it, because an idea then we can put it in a box afterwards, but we want to be as open as possible during the idea.
Well, what about how to make it bigger or better?
How to make it bigger and better? That's just something that we strive for all along the movie. That's a mindset, actually, more than a step of the project. So, of course, make it bigger, better. We strive for excellence. So we hope that brings us to bigger, better. With, of course, budget. Yes.
I don't really know about this, but maybe like hiring people for the dialogue and such, or
Yeah. Okay. So like the recording of the voice artist and everything, that comes, yes, after the storyboard. So we'll put voices and recording.
What about just coming up with a plot?
Yeah.
The movie, right?
Yeah, that would be that's important. After the idea of brainstorming it, you do come up with a plot. So basically, I'll complete a story. You have a story. Characters, yes. So the two elements of a movie are going to be a plot, a story, and characters that are endearing and that you can connect with. If you have those two and they're well nailed down, you can actually get away with a badly animated movie as long as your character and stories are good. You will not succeed if you throw a lot of money just at a bad story. That's been done many times too. So, okay, so we have the creative part well done in writing here. We're missing just a little bit though in this development stage.
Technology needed to do it.
what are the requirements?
Good point, but that will come after. That will come after actually.
What are the requirements, maybe?
I'm sorry.
What are the requirements?
The what?
Requirements. What are the requirements?
The what? Sorry.
Requirements, like a software engineering project, what are the requirements you need?
Oh, the requirements. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Well, yes, but I'll bring that up during the pre-production. Yeah, that'll come after. Yeah. We're still in the development stage, though. Abstract from technology and all that stuff for now. Unfortunately, I know that's why you're here, but.
Figure out what audience you need to appeal to?
Yes, yeah, that will be actually in the brainstorming and everything. That will define where the story is going and the characters. Yep, that's good.
About like point of view.
Who's speaking?
Point of
Right.
view.
Point of view, as in.
What's your character's point of view you're viewing, or if you're outside of the character.
Okay, you're defining the characters and all that, and the story basically still. Yeah. We've talked a lot about, I'm going to help you, we've talked a lot about the developing of concepts and everything, we're in a very visual world in animation, so we need to design characters, we need to design sets. I showed you guys the aquarium. We came to them with 2 drawings. We didn't come to them with a script or a concept on paper and everything. We came to them with visuals, and we opened up the scene with visuals. So that's another step right here. We're gonna start designing these characters and do some of the settings that will show where the story's happening. So this pretty much sums up what these 8 people are doing in development on the first stage. And I'm gonna skip us forward in the presentation. Here's the cheat sheet. I could have shown you this, but it wouldn't have been as much fun. So basically in the story, we're going through synopsis, script, dialogue. That's all making sure the story makes sense and fleshing it out from the most simple paragraph down to an 8-9 page synopsis that's really starting to make sense in a story sense, and then down to dialogues and everything. So at the end, your script will be a thick chunk of paper that you'll have the joy of reading through over and over and over, because the iterations will keep going and going and going. Looks like I have to be a guest again here. There we go. I was warned that this would happen, so. The characters, like I said, we need to describe them as the story and all that. We need to make sure that they make sense also. We're dealing with their relationships and connections. That's kind of the point of views, actually, like you're saying. And the character designs. And then the global visual development. What is this going to look like? What is the feeling of it? Hopefully, you noticed those 2 drawings that we did. We really used those as reference. You probably saw that there was a connection from the very beginning to the end. That kept us on track during the whole the fabrication process. So after development, oh, and sorry, one thing, we often then make a teaser trailer. We show the potential of it with a little snippet of possibility, but it's such a small team that we're not really creating processes. It's more of an artistic kind of, we throw work into it and we see what comes out. But it does define what the style will look like. So that's that. Now we get to pre-production. Like I said, this is where there's a lot more brains, more technical brains, and the creative is still very active, but now we're starting to figure out how are we going to do what we imagined right here, okay? So what do you think happens here? Yes, yeah, a lot of equipment and everything that needs to be lined out. So we'll just put that here. Any other ideas?
Maybe, I don't know if this is silly, but like, maybe figuring out what things look like exactly so that when you do create it, you know exactly how a shadow falls on a shoe a certain way.
Like research, basically, creative research, or?
Yeah, research so it doesn't take super long to do little things.
Yeah, a lot of research, yeah. That's good. Oops. It actually bring back in what you said, defining the requirements. That kind of falls right into what equipment we're going to be using. Thanks to the research also that was done, that defines also where we're going with it. So all this part, a lot of thinking goes here. There's also creative, though. I probably locked you guys in too much onto the technical side. There is a lot of creative too. The storyboard fits in there. So we talked about storyboard. That's where we're laying out exactly what the director is laying out, what shots are going to be telling the story, and in what sequence, what the story arc is going to feel like in images. And the voice recordings are going to be done thanks to that afterwards. But that's after storyboard has been nailed. Any other ideas? Sorry? Well, the script we got. The script we finished once we finished the ideas, brainstorms, and all that stuff. We did the synopsis and the script, dialogued and everything. It's ready. We actually raised the money for the movie thanks to that also, or are still doing it. In this scenario, I'm not telling you that we finished raising the money. If you want to talk investment afterwards, feel free to take my business card and we'll continue that. I saw your hand?
I was writing rendering algorithms, say like for the fish that you showed us.
Yes, yeah. So technical development, yeah, definitely. There's in the team of these 30 people, more than half of them are technical directors, and they are going to be creating systems and assets and everything. They're going to be, for example, we model all the characters in 3D, but then there's a character technical director that will rig the character. So he'll put in the bone structure and the animation controls and the deformation systems and everything that makes the character animatable by an animator. And then you have the lighting technical director that makes sure that the lighting systems make sense and that it comes out as you want it. You've got the special effects technical director. You have the compositing technical director. You have all these technical directors. Each role, each part of the studio has a technical director or directors that are coming up with the systems. Kind of this research and equipment, all that ties into it, so that the creative is possible. So yes, spot on. We need to start thinking about systems and everything. So I'll just put TDs and systems. Any other ideas?
Would you want to define like deliverables and like type of environment in which your movie will be deployed in? Like maybe you're using a different visual effects tool that you would for a certain movie than another, or something like that.
Kind of researching the style of it. Yeah, definitely. This is the right time to figure that out for sure in pre-production. I'll bring up the cheat sheet so we can finish up this section. So in pre-production, like I said, we're creating assets. We're making sure that every element that we need to make the movie is made. Modeling, textures, rigging, the decors, the sets, render development, the characters need to be modeled, textured, rigged, their clothes, there's the clothes systems and everything. As you probably noticed in movies now, clothes move in very realistic ways. That's not something that happens by magic. You actually have to, everything that you see has to be done. You're making props and everything, and you're building the pipeline. That's the meat of what we're doing right now, is building the pipeline, because you can almost imagine making a movie like an industrial process. First, you make a prototype, that's development. You create something that you think will work and looks good, and this is what it could potentially be. You show that. Then once you approve that, you go into making the assembly line. You create the assembly line that will allow you to fabricate that product. Well, that's pre-production for us in animation. We're creating tools. We're making sure that there's connections between all the steps of fabrication. We're making sure that we can validate and assure the quality at every step. We're making sure that a shot can live through the beginning to the end of it, from storyboard all the way to final render, without going through huge problems. And we validate the system. So we're going through basically an assembly line building. And then we get into the fun part of, whoops. Oh, I forgot, I actually have a video to show you what it means to go through an asset. An asset, for example, this is a squid we had in the aquarium thing. We design it, okay? The artist draws it. We model it, give it 3D form, so it's a bunch of vertices connected with edges that make polygons. We texture it. We rig it, so that's all the systems so that the animator can start deforming it. We test it to make sure it's working actually. And we make it go through the render tests and the whole system from beginning to end to make sure that the asset is working. And that one octopus probably took a good week from beginning to end to do. And we saw it for probably 36 frames, which was about a second and a half. fun statistic that Kelly dug out for us. Our aquarium project took 43 hours, 43 man-hours per second to fabricate. Oh. And that's still a small amount of work compared to a feature film. We're about 10 times faster or 10 times less work put into each second of animation compared to a feature film. So then we get to fabrication. What do we do in fabrication? Sorry?
Render?
We render things out, yep. That's almost at the end of it. So, since I was writing things down, I'll put it over here. We're going to render things out here. What else?
Anything like visual effects?
We do visual effects, so special effects and everything like that. That'll probably come right before rendering. So I'll put VFX.
Will you develop a test case?
Test case, we actually did that in the, we brought a shot or two even from beginning to end. So we did a couple test cases here in pre-production because we don't want to hire 150 people and then realize that we didn't have the system right. So we're going to test it when we're only 30. So yes, that is very important though. What else?
Maybe like the score, musical score.
That's very good, yeah. When we're in fabrication now, the musical score, that's actually being done kind of parallel to what's happening. It'll come probably right here. We'll put it right here, the score. Even for our project here, the aquarium one, we did a score that was composed to the image. So it's a very involved process that requires as much creativity and attention to the animation as it would to the animators. The musician is helping the animation come to life. It's not just an overlay of music. So it's an important step. Oh, here, I'll help you out. We are creating a movie, so we have a lot of shots. So we're basically like a factory. We're pushing out shots now that we have the system ready, and the animators are being it's a very creative job, but they are like in a, it's unfortunate to say it this way, like in a factory, they are in an assembly line almost, and they are taking a shot, animating it, pushing it aside, pushing it to the next person, take a shot, animating it, push it aside to the next person, take a shot, and they're working hard trying to get, like in feature films, an average of 2 to 4 seconds of animation done per week per animator. So it's a lot of work, and that's per character on the screen too. So if you have 3 characters on the screen, they actually only produce a third of that. So here, I'll just put up the cheat sheet. So shot by shot, we're going through layout. That means laying out the things that are in the scene. You had a storyboard as an example to show you with drawing what's supposed to happen. In the layout, you actually place those elements in the camera and then pass it on to the next person. Next person then does the character animation. He makes things move, come to life, Disney style and everything. Secondary animation comes in after, when you've got to have things that are affected by the primary animation that can even be driven automatically sometimes, like cloth. Well, cloth is more a simulation problem, but like the hair on the kid's head was not animated by an animator. That was a system that was set up so when his head moved, there was a spring effect on it, and that's secondary animation. So we basically make sure that it's all working. Simulation, the cloth. If you're doing real hair, that's also simulation. Special effects like the water effects, smoke, gases, flames, all that stuff. The crowd effects. Then you go and light the shot. So you're placing lights. You're making sure that it actually looks like something. and you render it out, and those renders are often different parts of what's happening in the image. So the characters could be separate from the backgrounds, that could be separate from the fish, could be separate from the algae, could be separate from the boat, could be, so all these layers then are composited together thanks to, for example, Nuke or After Effects. They're very similar to Photoshop, where you basically layer things on top of each other and make it look good. It's a lot of work, but it's as simple as that. You have the sound, the score, the voice track, sound effects, of course, and you get to the final edit where you actually make the movie. That whole point there that I wanted to make is that by thinking a little bit outside of the box, we can make a better product and be more creative in the end than if we had just stuck to, well, our software does cloth with, for example, Cyflex has been used for a long time, and it's a pain to use. Whenever anything gets stuck in a crease under the armpits, for example, it snaps out of control and you have to redo the whole simulation. It takes hours to render out. No, this sequence probably took us a half day, we'll say, for the whole cloth process, and it was impeccable when it came out. So that's just to say that if you think outside the box, you can get a lot further. I'll get further in our presentation and prove that. So let's boil it down to what it means in people. 8 people. A lot of project stuff. We do have some tech going on, but it's a very artistic thing going on. The pre-production, 30 people, mostly heads of departments. We're building the studio. We're making it actually happen. And fabrication, a full-time crew of 150 people, and we're really producing the movie. And hopefully, it means at month 36, we are releasing a movie. And what we're doing also is, while all this is happening fabrication-wise, we're actually plugging in, these 8 people are back here thinking of the next movie. So that way, when all these people are done working, we aren't thinking, oh no, what do we do next? We're already up and gearing up for the next movie, so the pre-production starts happening, and the animators now can start working on movie 2, and movie 3, and movie 4, etc., etc. So let me show you a couple examples of what we developed in-house. Like, this is a project we did a couple years back. It was a story of a couple kids that rented a garage underneath some neighbors, and the neighbors' purpose was to kick them out. And we did this for Nickelodeon in Europe. We created an auto rig system back then. There's more and more of these systems that exist now, but back then we had no solutions to accelerate the fact that it takes a month to rig a character if you go from scratch. So rigging a character means you're putting all the bones and the structure in it so that the animator can move it, okay? So this process is too long if you need to create 20 characters for a series. We're talking about 20 months of work if you think about it. We boiled it down thanks to this program we wrote inside of Softimage that allowed us to just pinpoint rotation points on the body. We reference them, like you saw that first rig that that was being placed. That then tells the software, deploy the system that we have developed, and it deploys then all the arm rigs, finger rigs, everything that needs to be done with a synoptic. That's this little weird little man thing with the controllers on it, so the animator has a standardized reference that he can use to animate his character. Same thing we did for the face. You just pinpoint, thanks to the facial, the neutral face here, you pinpoint what that means on your character. It then deploys basically a muscular structure, because we're doing stretchable bones on this project. Deploys the muscular structure, does standardized weights and everything on those vertices, and allows the rigger to have a pretty far advanced rig that he'll fine-tune after and make sure that it's slick for the project. Side effect to this is that since we have standardized rigs, standardized facial systems, it means that from one character to the next, we have the same base to plug animation into. So that got us to developing our animation bank, meaning that this character could have the facial expressions of that kid that was done for a totally different series. And so as we go and we move along, we keep building and building and building our creative assets, basically we'll call it, so that we can go even further in the next project and even further. So it's by trying to be smart about the tools that we already have in our hands that we can go even further with the budgets that we get and go further creativity. That's our job. As the tech in the company, we need to make this happen so the artists are more creative. Do you have a question?
What language do you use for your automation, your scripting? What programming language?
What language here? Here it was JScript. That was what was the easiest to plug into Softimage at that time. Now we're very Python based because it's very standardized, and every application in our industry has Python as one of the natural languages in it. So we're very Python based now. Some of the development is done a little deeper. We go and create, we go into C++ and make custom DLLs and things like that. On the Windows side, we do whatever needs to be done with the software that's there. If it needs something deeper, we'll go deeper. If not, we will quantify what's actually needed. So, and that's the cool part about having people that understand more than just the software and how to work around, is that we can then plug in any software is relevant in that sense. We can decide that the animation software is no longer the best that we could use. We pull it out, we plug back in, and we just make sure the hooks work back in to so that the pipeline still makes sense. So yeah, Python for now is the answer to that question. Here, let me show you the next one. This project we did about 8 months ago. It's called Before Orphans. It was a nonprofit that came to us, and they told us that they wanted to make cartoons for orphans. And we thought, wow, this is a great cause, but tell us more about it. Well, they had these characters they needed to develop: a frog, a dog, and a lightning bug. And they had a really tight budget. So we really wanted to do it with them, but we had to figure out how are we going to render this quality animation with the budget that they have. Well, this is at the time, right now you're probably hearing a lot about this, about doing things with the GPU and processing things in alternate ways. Well, GPU rendering is also something that's been baffling us for years, how we can be playing video games and we're getting 30 to 60 frames per second of beautiful ambient occlusion and global illumination and bloom effects and everything coming at us, and when we're in our software it takes us 2, 3, 4 hours just to get a okay image out of it. So we started looking at game engines and at different GPU solutions. We found one that we really liked, and we tested it on this product. And we basically brought our render times down by 30 times. So what took 1 month to render is now taking us 1 day to render, which is mind-boggling when you actually think about it. And it allowed us to go a lot further than what our previous standards of quality were allowing us to go up to. So, and that's just an example where our industry is going. Is we're going to be able to slim down budgets, but quality is still, the public is demanding a very high standard of quality now. You see Big Hero 6 comes out, you see How to Train Your Dragon 2 comes out, and everything is just gorgeous. I mean, technically they're perfect movies as far as what's happening on the image. The only way to have a chance against these monster powerhouses is by being smart with the technology you have, because they're smart too. They're developing a lot of things on their side, but it's something that's being shared, pretty open, and if we stay ahead on the technology game, there's definitely room to improve and share in all this. This is what our pipeline looks like. It's going to be really non-descriptive actually, because what it's saying here is that every single step of the process from editing, animatics and everything all the way over to final edit, plug into the pipeline. And in the pipeline we have tools that do auto building, auto rigging, for example, is one of the tools we did for the character you saw. A bunch of animation tools, FX tools, the GPU rendering tools, and the compositing. All those tools then take every single step. It gets plugged in and it goes through the areas that it needs to update in the life of the shot, and then it shoots out automatic triggers to go to the next step. So for example, it's probably pretty mystical when I said it. Take a shot like this one. We'll take the shot 100 again. That's the shot where the kid goes down in the clam, okay? That shot went through the body animation, the facial rig. Once the animator said right here that its status was okay, it was approved. Well, no, he said the review was pending. See that little hand that I clicked on here? Once he put that, Jean-Marc, he was supervising animation, saw that come up in his task feed. He goes to it, and he automatically saw the video that the animator had generated thanks to the pipeline tools that just makes the animation, makes a preview render of what he's working on when he says that he's done with his work. So Jean-Marc goes to see it. He then clicks on approved. That triggers an event that then that creates a scene in the background that brings in the cloth system that we've already worked on and already developed. So all those hooks are ready, and it brings together a scene that has the cloth simulation so that Brooke, who comes in after that, can open the scene and look and see if there's something that's not working right. So she creatively comes and fixes things on the cloth system. She does the in and out with that other software. Then when she's happy with that, she goes on to the next place here. She says, it's pending review. Jean-Marc opens the scene again, looks at it. If it looks good to him, he gives comments. He says, no, I want to retake on that. Triggers an event, a task to Brooke. She opens it back up the next day. She gets the job done, puts another pending approval. It comes back to Jean-Marc. He says, this is great. He approves it. That triggers another event. Don't worry, I'm not messing up anything on the pipeline by doing these because this is already done. But he triggers another event, and it allows the next task to be built, the render scene. So the character comes in, it bakes, this is another concept, but it bakes the animation so that we're not relying on the render rigs anymore. Just the vertices are being defined in space and time per frame, and you come out with an alembic file is what we're using right now, but it's basically a point cache. That bit's transported into render scene. The lights are then just there, and the lighting guy, which was me on this project, I place lights, I make sure that they're in the right place. They're already in the scene because we defined what lights are going to be there. I put ready for approval. Jean-Marc opens the scene, tells me he thinks it's too blue. I open it back up, I make it bluer or redder or whatever, come back, and it goes on to the next step. And I'm not going to bore you with the details of how each step goes, but you see how basically the pipeline, by going in and out in that other frame here, by going in and out, each shot goes through the life of its process and plugs into the pipeline, and it updates itself through an intelligent use of database and status and all that stuff. And at the end, artists are only doing artistic tasks rather than trying to figure out, where do I save this file, what are the iterations of it, where am I at in my work. So that I don't know if that explained well to you what we do on a daily basis, but that's kind of what it is. And basically that's just in conclusion to say how important the tech is in our industry. I mean, I consider animation almost a technology company in a sense. Moondog is a technology company, but it's also a creative company. And the creative is made possible thanks to the technology, and the technology has a purpose because of the creativity that's there. So it's a privilege actually to be working in 3D animation, because I get to make my brain go all over the place on all kinds of problems, but it's always for the purpose of a great story, great characters that will hopefully move people into watching them and enjoying their time. So, thanks for listening to my rambling. It was fun to talk about it, and I hope you got something out of it. So, if you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer anything that you throw at me. If I don't know, I'll tell you.
Just real quick, we had some, I think the previous presentation was on motion capture.
Yes.
So have you guys ever...
That was Brent, right?
What was that?
Brent,
Yeah, Brent.
forget his last name. Yeah, but yeah, know him, yeah.
Have you guys ever integrated like a motion capture model into your, I guess, animation pipeline, or?
It's happened, yeah. That we did that when we worked with a project with Ubisoft. They had it was a more realistic type of animation, and there were a lot of body falls and bullet taking and all that had to be mimicked by actors, and so that was part of the process. It wasn't as advanced as a system as what Brent probably showed you. Is that he's explained his system to us too. It's pretty nice, but it involved a lot of calibration, a lot of it was a big headache, because it did give us the realistic motions and everything, but we spent as much more time cleaning those motions than it probably would have taken us to animate them. But we would have animated them with a little more, maybe too much liberty as far as movements and amplitude and cartoonish style to it. This looked like real men taking bullets and falling to the ground. So yeah, that can happen to use that.
So we have a computing in the arts major here in college, and a question for our students. Our students wanting to perhaps intern with you or work for you maybe eventually. What type of courses? So we have a balance of programming, and Python is one of the languages we use. Also, there's a visual art track. What courses would you recommend that they focus on? Because they have choices.
That's a tough question.
Work for your company.
Well, it's kind of, I don't think I have an answer of the magic formula per se, but I would definitely say that it depends, for one, on the student. There are students that are more technically inclined and others that are more artistically inclined. It's as long as they understand what balance they need for what job they want. If they have that, if they can focus on kind of an end objective, like for example, the lighting technical director is going to need to have a photographic type of aesthetic understanding, but he's also going to need to know what it means for a vector to shoot out from a light source, and what does that bounce mean, and what randomness do you need to include in that, and how many samples do you need for it to not look like it's all noisy, or I mean there's all these technical things that he needs to understand, but then he needs to have the aesthetic understanding to get to that point also. So that job will have a good balance in technical and artistic. There's other guys in the pipeline development that couldn't draw to save their lives, and that's great, because they are really focused on the methodological exactitude of where files are going, and they're the guys that will hound you for putting underscores where they're not supposed to be and everything, and that's great. And then you have other guys that are probably even less technical, and they it's a balance. If you know your goal, you can aim for it better. If you don't know your goal, I'd say 50-50. Try to get a good understanding of what the possibilities are, so that you can then define it better. Any other questions?
Like you mentioned, you were talking about the motion capture. Do you use like physics engines types of things? I mean, I guess that could help some of that.
Sometimes physics engines, as in for simulation,
well,
and
you have a character, and it could succumb to gravity, right? And you could sort of partially, instead of really controlling every single frame, if you will, it can actually give it some keyframes perhaps, and it sort of follows some gravity motion. I'm not a user of these things, but I know kind of roughly that they exist. And
Yeah, I might have the answer visually actually for you. So let me, oops. Let me get back to that. The squid, let's...
Semi-automate some of your tasking.
This squid right here, for example, does just that.
Okay.
Like this is the rig system that the animator has to play with. He's going to use these controllers and give rotations and position and all that to these controllers. Then after that, he's going to go test the animation of it. But if you notice, there's a lot of swaying once the tentacles fall down. He's only done rotation key points, and that's it. The jiggling of the head on the background, the swaying of the tentacles and everything, that is a simulation, in a sense, process afterwards, where it's basically giving, well, in the case of the tentacles, it was a system that's basically just looking at where it could be in time previously or in ahead based on parameters that we define, and it's a spring effect that dampens it out after a while. Or the head jiggling is kind of the same thing. Or you could simulate that with gravity things, but with animation.
Spring thing, I mean, that's physics.
Yeah, that's the spring one is the one we use. We put a lot of springs everywhere. Just gives jiggle to everything and it works. But another one maybe could be the muscle structure sometimes that we build, where we'll put in strands that are actually pretty physically accurate as to how a body is built, like how the muscles are attached, and then based on flexion and unfolding and everything, it changes the volume of it, and that then lets the skin layer slide over it, and it reacts like a real skin system. And it's heavy to compute though, so you have to weigh in what it's worth in the end. So we make a lot of decisions based on that too, which is why computing coming up faster and faster, and parallel ways of computing, we can compute those things. Those is problematic sometimes thanks to the GPU now that will aid the animator to see real time what the end result is, rather than hoping that what he did with his simplified rig actually works. Yeah, and each case actually opens up that debate, like what do we need to do here? What needs to be built? Yeah.
Now, if a student were really interested in animation, where should they start? Should they jump into Blender and try to animate in 3D, or should they start with 2D traditional hand-drawn animation and just understand timing and squash and stretch, and then move up to Blender, or is some mix of these approaches useful?
I'm not going to say you've got to start with 2D nor with 3D. Those are two different styles. You can express the same emotions through one or the other, and those are just tools. But some are more comfortable with 2D and some are more comfortable with 3D. So that's my blanket answer. It depends on the person. But the principles, like you said, of squash and stretch and anticipation and staging and all those really important essentials, those are important to understand from the beginning. Before, get to know what those basics are before even going into what tool you want to use. Then after, what tool you want to use could be dictated by availability, or sometimes it's just pure cost. Blender is free. Maya is not free. That sometimes just by itself tells you which one you're going to use. And in the end, there are a lot of free tools though. I'd say 3D is exciting in the sense that it takes away that frustrating creative barrier where a lot of us don't draw as well as the guy next to us, and so we just decide, well, we're not going to animate. 3D, that's not the case. It's more about timing and posing, and you have time to place your character basically with your mouse and keyboard to agreeable poses, and then see what that gives in time. And you don't have to know how to draw to be an animator. So 3D opens the door to animation to people, and animation is actually being an actor, an introverted actor actually, behind the screen that knows how to convey emotions in a much more painful way because you spend days doing it than a real actor would do it in a few seconds in front of the camera. So, yeah, so Blender, yes, why not? There's a lot of free rigs out there too if you want to start. Any other questions?
Very cool.
All right.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Beth.
Yes, thank you.